And welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast. And today we are taking a look at the trailer for Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. And can I just say this seems oddly familiar because I could have sworn we did a trailer reaction to another Godzilla project recently. Where oh where? Anyway, so today we're going to do a trailer reaction. But before we do, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what your thoughts are. If you think this is going to be a slam dunk, or if you're starting to get tired of all the Godzilla stuff, as you are of the superhero stuff. But let's go ahead and dive in. Let me go ahead and put this on media.
For most of human civilization, we believed that life could only exist on the surface of our planet. What else were we wrong about?
Welcome to my world. Won't you come on in?
That's dinosaurs. Look, there was
This world has
Kong.
more secrets than we could possibly imagine.
Miracles I get. Still happen now and then.
What
Baby
is that?
That's not Kong. What could have done this?
Kong can't stop this on his own.
He won't be alone.
I'm eager to see. I mean, what's the weird version? Except the running side by side.
Is that a mini Kong?
Oh,
So, according to Wikipedia, based on what the premise is, it's supposed to be like this big threat that that's supposed to unite Kong and Godzilla together, or have them team up again. But then the question, for me is, what exactly is this big threat? Because we saw that one giant ape wearing a bandolier made of bones, obviously. So obviously he can't be the big baddie because Kong could just take his ass down. I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I don't. No idea. Don't know what to expect with this. I mean,
Do you not
I
care?
Guess, the story does. Yeah, I mean, honestly, right? I mean, does it matter, right? I don't. No one's going into that thinking like, okay, I want to make sure I have a really sensible villain for my Kong and Godzilla team up movie. I think we're just going to go into it with the hopes of hopefully it just dives right into all the bizarre action and everything. What was the first movie in this line? Right? What was it? Is
Or something like
Kong and somebody, or was it Godzilla and somebody?
Or talking about the very beginning or the last movie that had the two in?
The last movie, yeah, the
I
last
think
one.
I think it was Godzilla and versus Kong. I think because I
So it
because
did have the two of those together.
so obviously there was obviously there's Godzilla, which we saw way back in the day. Then there was Skull Island, then there was King of the Monsters. Yeah, it was
Yes.
Godzilla versus Kong. That was 3 years
Okay, yeah,
ago.
I couldn't remember because I'm like, I remember something came out that had, Godzilla and Kong in it, but I just couldn't remember. So okay, well, I guess this is the team up movie we've been waiting for. So we got the
Well,
uh,
technically, it's a sequel to the
giant
team up movie
monster
that we got.
universe.
I mean, technically, this is the sequel to the team up we already got 3 years ago.
Yes, yeah, that's true. We're re-teaming up. We got to do it again. So
I mean,
worked the first time. I guess we got to do it a second time. Because if we're not going to do superheroes, we might as well just have giant monsters clobbering each other. So, yeah, I don't know what to expect with it. The first one I didn't really care that much for. Felt like it was very people centric this time around. I guess hopefully they learned from that. And I mean now, like with all the buzz around, was it Godzilla -1? I mean,
yeah,
people have been just cheering for that and how great of a job it did. So, I mean, I think kind of a good example of I mean, you can do these movies and really blend elements of a giant creature feature with really strong characters and good stories, and they can mesh well together if you're able to do that. So hopefully they take a page out of what Godzilla -1 is doing, not outside of the other Godzilla and Kong movie that I feel like did not do that at all. So
well, I mean, that's the problem with these Godzilla. Well, I say Godzilla movies. I mean the American versions of the Godzilla movies is the fact that they're very. I mean, to your point, they're very people centric. We focus more on on the lives of the characters and individuals than we do on the monster. The monster is incidental, as opposed to being the main star of the show. I think that's where we fall flat in our iteration of Godzilla is because you know we want so much to tell the human story to the point that the monster is just sidelined or even forgotten about.
yeah,
Um,
and I mean, there's ways that you do that. I think it's about just being able to blend it well, and I think that was more, at least that was more of my issue with the first one was, it just didn't feel like they did a good job at telling the story of the characters. And I mean, yes, like you definitely want to see more of the fights because that's a huge part of it.
right.
And like I said, the stories with the people don't necessarily have to be Oscar worthy, but you have to give us something a little bit more. And I think that's where the big difference is. Where I think Godzilla -1, it does do a fair bit with the characters, but I think because the character story is just so engaging that you can deal with both of those elements in there. But you need to, if you're going to do both elements, you have to do them well. You can't have one severely lacking and then the other one being non-existent. It's like when you have all those things, it becomes an issue, and they just have to find the right balance and make sure that if you're focusing on this character story, it just has to be something that people are invested in.
Right. Because because the thing with the American versions, it's either it's kind of an either or kind of thing. Either it's people or it's the monster. Can't be.
Yes, yes,
Whereas with Godzilla -1 and the Toho versions, it's well we can do both. It doesn't have to be this one or the other kind of scenario.
absolutely.
I think that's where we need to kind of like turn to their playbook and see what are they doing so good. Why are their movies more memorable and more have a much better impression than our versions? You know.
Yep, and not crazy expensive either. Look at how cheap Godzilla -1 was.
Oh yeah, that's
Um,
right. That's right. Because
shoestring budget for what they're getting and what we're seeing on the screen. Now, obviously, it's not a perfect comparison because we're comparing two different things. I don't know kind of like how much they're paying their people. They might be underpaying them. Like I don't want to create a false narrative with that, but I mean something has to be said for all the bloat that it seems like we're having with Hollywood movies nowadays, and how even movies on a fraction of the budget can still be successful and depict what we want to see. So
Yeah.
I think a good example of hopefully, like you point out, not only we're looking at the scripts and how we're writing everything, what are they doing for their budget that makes them a lot more? Because that's what we need more of. Like I feel like we've gotten dragged down with all these high budget movies, and everyone's expecting to go there and see a movie that has to have hundreds of millions of dollars in their budget. But you can create something really good with the same type of premise for a fraction of the price. So that's what we need to see more of. So that's what I'm hoping we can at least maybe capture some of that magic that we're seeing with some of those other things.
But you also know too. I mean, a lot of that budget is going into special effects and post
Yes, exactly.
production, which which is someone who dabbles in that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm all for getting the best of the best, but it is possible to to make something spectacular but not blow the budget. I mean, I'm totally in line with what you're saying. So it just boggles the mind that, and I was looking this up too while you were talking. I mean, the budget for Godzilla versus Kong was like, pushing $200 million right there.
Oh my gosh.
And frankly, what we got was pretty subpar because there's nothing about Godzilla, versus Kong that made you think, wow, that's really, that's really phenomenal compared to Godzilla -1. It was less than 15 million. And they knocked it out of the park right there.
Yes.
So there's a huge disconnect in the filmmaking philosophy of what we're doing and what the Japanese are doing. And the same can be said with anything in media. I mean, obviously you're a huge anime fan, so so the storytelling and the artistic direction that they're doing in their stories is going to be far more different and far more far more thought provoking than what we're doing, which in which we're spending millions and millions of dollars, and yet we're turning out slops like The Simpsons, which is, gosh, I mean, I'm the same age as The Simpsons. That's a depressing thought. And we're not getting any quality stuff like we're getting from other places. So it's definitely something that we definitely need to take stock and take a look at and ask ourselves, how can we make something good but not go over the top? Because it is pretty suspicious when you think about it too. Like, what did they need all this money for? Because I mean, the actors themselves, I mean, because I've spoken with a few people, I mean, there's usually like a set fee or an agreed fee that they pay, and even when it comes to post production, it's not gonna go over like 10 million, I think. So it all stinks a bit that they're asking for like 200 million to make a movie that that didn't do too well in the box offices 3 years ago. But that's just me. Real quickly, we did a review of the trailer for Monarch: Legacy of Monsters a few weeks ago, and you've been watching the series. Can you give us a quick take on what you think so far of the series? Yay or nay? Exciting? Worth watching? No?
Yeah, I'm definitely on the fence on it so far. I think there's elements of it that have been, pretty interesting, and other parts of it that have been, well, not very interesting. So I think there is some things out there. So I do want to see more of it. I think I'm on episode 6, and that one just came out recently. So, I guess I'll have more to say once we get through some of it. But, I mean, so far it's been pretty interesting. The monsters, we've seen a few different ones, which I think is cool. So they've definitely done some things that I found pretty interesting so far. So I guess kind of another thing out there that's kind of dealing with, those big monster things. So I'm curious where they're going with it and what they can do.
And another thing I was going to mention too, because you brought it up earlier, it looks like we're shifting away from the superhero universe to the monster universe. Do you have any hopes that it might be any better, or it's just going to be same old, but with different characters?
I mean, it's probably going to be the same old. I don't and I mean, I don't know if I really believe that type of shift is happening. I think there's just a few things that are popping up, and it's just kind of like, maybe a a little bit of a flash right here as far as what things we're doing. So I don't know if we're kind of going full into that, but I mean, you know, I think it's when you have a movie that's largely based on a giant monster that doesn't speak and do stuff, it's not exactly easy. Like, there's a lot of things that you have to kind of look at and be able to kind of address. So I'll be curious what more we do with that. So I guess we'll see. So
Okay.
but I'm not overly optimistic that it's going to be anything breathtaking or something that's going to meet the highs of, you know, an Avengers level movie or anything like that.
Right, gotcha. All right, well, that is going to do it for our reaction to Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Let us know down in the comments below, what you think of the trailer. If you're excited and if you have high hopes, or if you think this is just another eye-rolling moment. And as always, remember to like, comment, subscribe. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch these videos, and have a happy New Year. Bye.